Now we're being joined by our guest, David Kirichenko, Associate Research Fellow, Henry Jackson Society. Good evening, sir. Great having you on.
Good evening. Thank you for having me on today.
So we just had this quick, brief lecture on how amazing drones can be. They're definitely game changers. But why and how they became so important? What was the process?
Well, I think at the start of the war, both sides were quick to try to use technology to try to find a battlefield advantage. And that's not just with drones, but with other types of technology. But I think certainly the Ukrainians have utilized drones to try to counter Russia's much larger war machine. Ukraine relies on the ingenuity of its people, innovation, to try to counter Russia's superior numbers and superior weaponry on the battlefield. But not only has Ukraine been able to use drones to level the battlefield in certain ways, but at times when they were short on artillery, the Ukrainians relied on some of these FPV drones to try and strike Russian targets in the absence of artillery. But the Ukrainians have also been able to use these drones, sea drones, to remove Russia's blockade of Ukraine's grain exports. So they've been striking the Russian warships and removing Russia's blockade and getting Ukrainian ships and exports flowing out again. And so really drones have helped Ukraine not only remove Russia's blockade, but start winning the battle of the Black Sea. And now a lot of Russia's, vast majority of Russia's Navy had to retreat closer to the eastern side of the Black Sea near Georgia. And on the capabilities that Russia has with electronic warfare, Ukraine is trying to use drones to counter that, artificial intelligence. So right now, Ukrainian startups are working on building out artificial intelligence capabilities. So they're training these models right now. They're working on them because Russia is very sophisticated with electronic warfare. So the idea is you counter Russia's abilities to fight these drones by overcoming that with artificial intelligence in these drones. So if the drone is jammed, artificial intelligence can take over and do the last mile delivery of the payload to overcome the jamming and hit the Russian targets. And so what Ukraine aims to do is leverage their domestic drone industry. They continue to be leaders, I think, in global innovation and using drones to try and stay ahead of the Russians to make sure that Ukraine is winning the fight where possible.
Right. You mentioned, of course, the implementation of AI with this drone. And you actually also mentioned this in the article that you wrote about this particular utilization of technology. I would employ our viewers now to take a look at Mr. David Kirichenko's article. It's very, very comprehensive. And within the article, you also mentioned the fact that Ukraine can manufacture these drones in a more innovative way because of the decentralized way that they are being produced compared to that of a Russian more centralized way of production. And personally, I find it almost poetically metaphoric that Ukraine is having Western aspiration take the form of these kind of flexible free market sort of innovation when it compares to the more centralized kind of dictatorial communist way of building these structures. Do you find that to also, do you echo this sentiment, or do you think I'm putting 2 and 2 and getting 5.5?
No, certainly. I mean, I think decentralization has been a key theme for Ukraine's battle effort, and not just decentralization in how they produce and assemble the drones, but how so much of the Ukrainian army relies on volunteers bringing these drones, Ukrainian people working out of their garages to try to build new types of drones, make innovations, using 3D soldiers using 3D printers to build parts. There's volunteers and different funds that run pilot training schools for these drones. And then in terms of the building and assembly of these drones, Zelensky said he wants over 1 million drones produced in Ukraine by year's end. And I think Ukraine is well on its way to meet that target even sooner. And take, for example, TAF drones. They have also a model where they every month and every quarter they're changing their locations of where they produce and manufacture the drones so that the Russians can't strike their facilities, and they're distributed around the country. And there's at this point in time more or less around 200 domestic drone companies that are working on producing and assembling drones. So Ukraine not only is relying on the creativity, the ingenuity of its people, it also is relying on free market solutions, relying on close partnerships with the West, and leveraging all that it can to be leaders in the drone industry. And then specifically with AI and these drones, Ukraine has all the battlefield data. So Ukrainian engineers, they're able to work directly with the military, get all this data, train the models. How does the tank move? How are soldiers moving on the battlefield? How do we train these drones so that they're accurate when delivering these payloads and hitting Russian targets?
Right, and sort of we already see Western companies such as, let's say, Rheinmetall investing in Ukraine, building ammunition factories, right? So I was wondering, you've mentioned 200 companies creating drones. Do you think that some of these will attract Western investors or perhaps, well, something of the sort?
Yes, not only are they attracting Western investors, but there are a lot of companies in the West, in the United States, in Europe that are interested in already working with Ukrainian partners on getting their own drones to the battlefield. Like if a Western company wants to see how its drone is going to perform in battle, you need to deliver it to Ukraine, and you need the Ukrainians to use that drone on the battlefield to see how does it perform, how does it react to Russian jamming, electronic warfare. And so not only is there going to be a lot more interest, I think, from investors, but Western companies will also partner, potentially start opening more offices. And so I think this is just the beginning. And Ukraine is at the forefront of so much of the world's innovation when it comes to military technology, drones, AI in drones, among other areas.